Hi, this is Tim from latest3dsgames.com, and today I just thought I'd talk about this, of course, the Nintendo 3DS. So, over the last few weeks there's been a bit of press and lots of other things around the news about the 3DS, saying that it's a complete flop and that it's a complete failure, and Nintendo has made a big mistake, and lots of other things bad about the Nintendo 3DS, including the sales figures, which aren't as impressive as obviously they could be. And I think Nintendo originally anticipated in the first couple of weeks they'd sell 4 million units or so, and something like 3.5 million, 3.6 million were sold. So the big question that everyone seems to be asking, I'm not asking it, but everyone else seems to be, is the Nintendo 3DS a flop? And quite simply, I think no is the answer. It was only released at the end of March, and the initial sales were pretty good, but I think unfortunately just due to, there's been lots of bad press about the 3D giving people headaches and eye problems, things like that, and also the economy around the world is obviously really poor. Generally there's not a lot of growth in most countries, people are hanging on to their money. March, although it's around sort of Easter in a lot of countries, isn't generally, end of March, April, May, through the summer isn't the sort of best time I would have thought for selling games consoles. Obviously coming up to September, October and into the Christmas period, I think the sales are really going to increase for the Nintendo 3DS. The big other problem, of course, has been the software, or the lack of it. The lack of the AAA titles, or the top titles, whichever way you want to put it. So far on the Nintendo 3DS, all we've really had as a fantastic title is, of course, The Legend of Zelda. There's plenty of other good games around for the 3DS. Resident Evil Mercenaries, Pilotwings, Nintendogs, Ridge Racer. There's lots of good games out there, but there is a distinct lack of really good titles available. So those titles hopefully are, although some of them have been delayed, like things like Cave Story have been delayed from September to November. Other titles have been delayed. Animal Crossing originally I think was planned for this year, that's into 2012. Luigi's Mansion 2, again I think that was due to come out this year, that's not going to come out until spring sometime, maybe 2012. Super Mario is hopefully going to come out before Christmas or just after Christmas. I don't think we'll get that until 2012, maybe we will, hopefully we will. Paper Mario is 2012, and there are a lot of great games coming out in the early part of next year, but that's not obviously going to help us before Christmas. So the games coming out before Christmas, almost certainly Star Fox will be with us at the beginning of September. I think it's coming out in the on the 9th of September, and then we've got Metal Gear Solid, which should be with us. Cave Story, obviously delayed, should be with us. And there's a number of other good titles that are coming out. Hopefully Mario Kart will be with us in November. Sonic Generations again in November. So I don't think it's a flop. I just think it's suffered really with the usual new console syndrome. Delayed games, lack of games at launch. Although, there were a fair number of games available. They weren't all great. I still think there's a lot of good games, as I mentioned earlier, but there aren't that many sort of AAA, titles out there for the Nintendo 3DS at the moment. I'm happy to admit that that's just how it is with new consoles. I think it's affected new consoles for years and years, that when they launch, for whatever reason, the manufacturers, be it Xbox and Microsoft or PlayStation, Sony with the PlayStation, they just tend not to launch the great titles with the console. Occasionally you would get a one great title maybe launched with the console, but generally it just doesn't happen. You just get a few decent games and then you just have to wait, and quite often what happens, as we've seen, the games are delayed. Some games have been delayed 3 or 4 times already. On the Nintendo 3DS, I think I've seen Pac-Man Galaga. I've seen about 4 or 5 different dates coming up on Amazon, for instance. I don't know if that's just the manufacturers, or just they've never been given a firm date and companies are just guessing when it's going to come out. I don't know. But certainly games are being delayed for the Nintendo 3DS, and that is just typical, as I said, for a new console. So I don't think it's a big flop, and I think the features of the Nintendo 3DS are excellent. Yes, the 3D is a little bit gimmicky in some games. It does enhance some games. I think it's really effective and unique in some games. I don't have the 3D on all the time. I think a lot of players do have it on all the time. But I think what's gone a little bit wrong for Nintendo is the bad press about the 3D. People seem to forget that you can adjust the 3D depth slider to your needs, and of course if you are genuinely having a problem, which I've never really suffered a problem at all, you just turn the 3D off. I think Nintendo really need to highlight not just the 3D capability, but the fact that the Nintendo 3DS is a big jump up from the Nintendo DS. They keep telling us it's a completely new system, but they just don't seem to emphasise that the fact that it's 3D and that's unique. They don't show us all the other features and the fact that it's a big leap up in graphics and sound and gameplay for the whole console system. So I think Nintendo need to concentrate on that and show us the great titles that are coming out for the Nintendo 3DS in the next sort of few months and in the early part of 2012. So I'm really confident that no, it's not a flop. It's not going to be a flop. It's going to be a massive success. Like I said, the world economy is really bad. People aren't just buying consoles at random, and I think the Christmas sales are going to be massive, hopefully massive for the 3DS. The new Christmas titles, the titles coming out before Christmas, will help sell the system, and I think people will start to upgrade from their DS and DSIs, etc., and start wanting the 3DS. And one other point to mention, I think, that's really important, that the actual sort of the unique aspect of the playability of some of the 3D games and the things like the AR feature haven't really been utilised by anyone yet. So I think those are going to start coming out in games, and some completely unique features in games utilising 3D. So it's only really kind of playable in 3D, so you couldn't really have it on any other system. Those sort of games are really going to sort of start maybe pulling people towards the system as well, and some of that's not really been shown on the 3DS yet. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that and just declare that no, I don't think, as I've said about 100 times already, but let's go for 101. It's not a flop. The 3DS is maybe not as successful as it could have been, or maybe should have been. I think Nintendo need to change the marketing a little bit, but I think the great titles that are coming out soon for it will sell the system, and it'll be a massive success at the end of this year and into next year. So I'll leave it at that. And this has been Tim at, forgotten where I'm called now. Yeah, this has been Tim at latest3dsgames.com. Thanks for watching.